Hi, everyone. Good morning. Ann Gemmel here, founder of Future Works Alliance. Thank you for attending this morning. We're going to talk a little bit about the launch. This is the launch meeting for the very first Future Works Alliance Philadelphia Strategic Collaboration Alignment Cycle around the topic of a communications program for future-ready careers. I'm here with Michael Taylor from Shelling Point. Shelling Point is partnering with Future Works Alliance. Future Works, before I introduce Michael, just a quick reminder, Future Works Alliance exists so citizens and leaders can collaborate, align, gain efficiencies by using resources together, share their expertise, whether it's technology experts with public sector leaders, and then co-design viable solutions using experts from around the region. And so Shelling Point is a really great tool for facilitating that design process for strategic collaborations. And the big picture goal is, greater economic opportunity for more people in the region as we continue deeper into an era of rapid technological change. Michael, do you want to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Anne. Good morning, everybody. My name is Michael Taylor. I'm one of the co-founders and principals of Shelling Point. And just as an introduction, in terms of the role that we play, we are primarily a technology provider, as you'll see in our description here, based upon research that we conduct into organizational initiatives. We derive from that methods and tools and techniques, and we provide those to people such as Anne to support collaboration such as the one that you're participating in. In terms of what we mean by collaboration, there are three types of collaboration: the strategic collaboration, operational collaboration, and tactical collaboration. Strategic collaboration is that situation where there's a group of people with a shared purpose for which they need to design and produce new outcomes. So typically strategic collaboration, a group of people saying, where are we, where do we want to go to, how we're going to get there. That will then lead to operational collaboration, teams are working together doing things, and that comprises task level tactical collaboration. What we're doing at Shelling Point is we've looked at all types of strategic collaborations, from corporate strategies and mergers and talent strategies and IT implementations and major decisions and policies, but we've looked at them both, and we continue to look at them, should I say, both within a single organization. What are we going to do about something? Between pairs of organizations, channels, outsourcing contracts, suppliers, joint ventures, what are the two of us going to do together? And then across strategic collaborations across multiple organizations, and where it's a group of people with a shared subject, where it's what are we going to do and where are we going to go? In terms of I'll call it the conventional within space, whether it's governments, pharmaceutical companies, large corporations, small corporations, 5-person ventures. What we're dealing with here is you are a participant in and across. This is where, in this case here, there were 700 credit unions that need to decide where they were going to take mass back office collaboration. This European Commission project was 542 people from CROs and government bodies, the whole plethora of clinical trials and pharmaceuticals, creating a 10-year healthcare innovation roadmap for Europe. And here in the US, this is where there was a couple of thousand American hospitals deciding on what will the hospital of the future look like and how to get there, how to advance towards that. These are just some examples. The main point in these situations is there's no one executive telling everybody what to do. It truly requires upon a group of people to come together and create coordinated action around that subject. And I want to hand over here to Anne at this point, just to introduce the beginnings of the subject that I'm going to then explain how we're going to conduct that in the coming weeks.
So as the folks on the call have been introduced to various levels of the Future Works Alliance vision, I just want to reiterate that this is ambitious because it's across multiple organizations. The very nature of the Future Works Alliance is built on the assumption that preparing for the future of work is complex and will require lots of experts at the table, but that it's not impossible. And so, you know, over my career of 15 to 20 years of strategic collaborations, some people call it coalition building or political organizing, or, you know, getting a sufficient number of people to see the what's in it for them to come to the table and stay at the table and row in the same direction until certain goals are accomplished to the group's satisfaction. That's something I've done over the course of my career. So I'm thrilled to actually be, in a sense, augmented. Like, I'm getting augmented by this software, which is very exciting to bring some science and technology to the art form of strategic collaboration. So the shared purpose big picture of the Future Works Alliance is to build a future of work playbook together. Before COVID, there was a timeline, agreed upon timeline of 5 to 7 to 10 years that we would be going through this transformation. After the pandemic hit, it became evidently clear that digital transformation was in hyperdrive, and the future is truly now. In so many ways, disruptions were coming faster and faster towards the labor force, towards workers, towards companies, towards the public sector in ways that was difficult to manage. And so I was inspired to launch the Future Works Alliance independently so that it could move faster than the pace of government. And so the first element, the core element that helped the Future of Work playbook exist is the creation of the Future Works Alliance itself, right? We have to build the space for the like minds to come together. And that was really accomplished over the summer of 2020. We made a public launch in November of 2020. That's how Michael came into the picture and approached us through the press, and many founding members joined after that launch, joined the advisory board. Now we're building the infrastructure of the Alliance itself, and we're ready to launch our first strategic collaboration that's driven by the second chapter, if you will, of the Future of Work playbook. So that second chapter is communicating effectively and together about the opportunity involved in the future of work. And so when you launch into the process of strategic collaboration, you'll be in great company. I've spent many weeks talking to different participants who will bring different perspectives, different diverse experiences to the opinion gathering phase and the whole alignment cycle involved. So there'll be, every time that we create another chapter in the Future of Work playbook, we'll have a different set of participants to contribute expertise, and we'll also be growing the movement. And so I'm really excited by partnering with Shelling Point. You'll see a lot of it's kind of based on the premise that you have to begin with the end, right? All the people who need to support a communication strategy down the road are invited to the table now. Now that 800 plus participants, that's the size of the Future of Work Alliance email supporter list at the moment. Well over 800. It will continue to grow as different different columns are published and speaking engagements and stuff. So I'm basically building that list along with the help of many others and inviting them into different elements to build the Future of Work playbook.
So Anne, thank you for that and providing the context for what we're doing here in the first of the, as we call the process, the alignment cycle. So the group are in a strategic collaboration. They're going to bring their opinions, their data, and we're going to translate "we each think this" into "we all agree to do that," and then on to "we did it." In terms of the process for doing that, we name it an alignment cycle. At the end of the day, we need a group of people to produce the most valuable, most viable, and genuinely endorsed set of agreements, goals, and plans around this topic of the communication strategy. Now, this process here, this is the process that has come from us looking at over 330, officially now over 400 projects. And this is the same process used in the White House to solve policy issues, in the European government to solve policy issues. We're using this in Europe at the moment in a state to generate a 20-year workforce plan. And at the same time, it's the same process used by 7 IT managers in 2 days to come up with an IT policy. So the main point here is what, as Anne said, the people will change, the content will change, but the steps are the same, no matter the size of people or the subject. And so what we're going to do is we're going to invite those people in who we think need to be involved so we get the right result at the end. We're going to surface their opinions. In parallel, we'll be gathering any necessary quantitative data, but we'll gather their opinions. And those opinions will go into a repository where we will then apply AI, augmented intelligence, and frames. The research that we have conducted has led to new frames for understanding strategic collaborations. I teach those at business schools here in the US, and we teach them to executives and management consultants and others. So there's frames we're going to use that the technology will enable. And the main point of the first part is to gather this rich set of data in the form of opinion data as well as quantitative. And then we're going to use our technology to say, right, this is what this group needs to discuss in this sequence if they're going to come up with the most valuable, viable, and genuinely endorse. So what we're doing is we're using the first stage to pinpoint the conversations. There's 4 of them that will happen. I'll come to this point later on. I just want to respect the time here, but we'll deal with monitor drift later. But this is the point where you have something that we say, right, this is the best it can be. And now let's go and start that coordinated action. In terms of the opinions, I want to show this because this is core to what's going to happen going forward. Typically, when groups get together, they share their opinions. I think this, I think this. They might do it purely in dialogue. They might go up to whiteboards and write things down and have sticky notes. But all these views of the government's going to do this, the economy is going to go in this direction, digital is going to have this impact. Think about assumptive statements about how things are and how things are going to be. We now know that's one of the 4 types of opinion that drives our action in action. If you look at any strategy or program, eventually all of its content was derived from these 4 areas. And so what happens is we think, well, because this is occurring or is going to occur, we should take this action. We also think, well, because if you ask me in 3 years' time, what does a more resilient workforce look like in the Philadelphia region? I think it looks like this. I think what's going to prevent us moving from where we are to where we're going to be are these barriers. Therefore, I should do this. And then I also have concerns. I'm worried we're going to disenfranchise this community. I'm concerned we're going to compromise all this work that was done the last 3 years. So because of that concern, I'm going to do this. So what we now know is that our actions are derived from these 4 categories of opinion. So we need to understand these opinions and we need to agree around these opinions. Now, when it's me, Michael Taylor, it's fine, it's just me. As soon as there's 2 or more people, that's when we need to use dialoguing techniques and pinpointing techniques. So if, for example, we now know if we go in front of a group and say, what are your reasons for having this conversation? Why have it in the first place? Why put together a communication strategy to support the future of work? We now know that a leader will express that in about 5 to 7 sound bites. A leader will summarize it. This is occurring, that's going to happen, this is like this, that's why. But we now also know that when we go out to a group of people and ask them, why do you think we need to do this? They'll have 30 different opinions, but they'll only on average agree on 6 of them.
So Michael, if I could just add some
yes, go ahead.
Color commentary specific to Future Works. So this chart is interesting because when I look at this chart, I think about in-person, 2-day strategic collaborations, whole-day conferences, and all the humanity that gets injected into the assumptions, the barriers, the unintended consequences. And there's you know, it's good to have humanity in the room, but it also has some drawbacks in the sense that it interjects personality, it interjects emotion, it interjects, you know, fear of some people speaking up or speaking out. So one of the greatest things in my view about this software is that it takes emotion out of the room and really levels the playing field in terms of opinions being put forward. It offers the protection of anonymity, and it therefore, I think, fleshes out more of the sentiment in the room, whereas in an in-person conference, an influential leader or influential person may say something out of the gates that sets the table, and there's a reluctance in the room to surface, you know, barriers or surface the unintended consequences or to voice. It suddenly requires more courage from other voices to surface a contrary opinion. And so all of that dynamic is now leveled out, and you get a little bit better sense of all of the coalition, all of the alliance perspective around a particular topic.
And couldn't say it better. Yep, so that's exactly right, is allow everybody to share their opinions, understand them all. In the goals area, if we ask people what the success looked like, they'll have on average 18 different views, they'll agree on 5 of them. So it's a case now, okay, we agree on 5, that's where most of the conversation occurs, where we agree, but what about the 13 where some of us think that should be a goal and others don't? And so I'm doing this because this is going to be core to the process going forward. Specifically, the first activity starting next week is what we call the digital virtual dialogue. This is where from your offices, from your homes, wherever you are, you'll be invited over 3 weeks to conduct 3 steps. The first step that you can put in 5 minutes or 15 minutes or 30 minutes, it's up to you how many opinions you have that you want to share on the subject. But in step 1, you get to say, we should do this. It is like this. They won't do that. We then gather those together and then we send them back out to everybody saying, this is what your community said. And I just want to let you know that groups average 130 to 190 opinions. It's going to be around plus 150 or plus. But we provide them in a format where in about 20 minutes, you can see every one of them. Okay, somebody said we should do this, somebody said it's like this, somebody said they won't do that, somebody said this, somebody said this, and we'll present them so you can learn what your entire group is saying about the subject, and you can privately agree and disagree. We then run some mathematics against that. Mathematics derived from the work of the Nobel Prize recipient, Professor Thomas Schelling. And we're not using bar graphs and averages. We're actually calculating the distance between people's heads. We're objectively measuring like-mindedness. And from that, we then provide a private third step, which again takes 5 to 10 minutes, that allows people to say the reason for agreeing with this is because of this. The reason for disagreeing with this is because of this. So those are the 3 steps. Upon completion of those 3 steps, each person will receive a personalized report showing every opinion, showing the range of responses from the whole community, with then a comparison of where you were. So this is where you can see, well, I said this and others agreed, and I said this and others don't feel that way. And I just want to make a point here that we know from hundreds of groups where we've done this, when somebody says something, everybody else only agrees with them on average 17% of the time. 83% of the time, there's some amount of, oh, I think that, but not everybody else does. So everybody receives a private report. Then we have group level analytics, and you will be invited back to a meeting like this where we will then share, this is what everybody said, this is where this sector thinks, and this is where this sector thinks about things, and this is where this sector and this sector agree and don't agree about things. And then again, our AI technology will use this content to say, if that's the case, then these are the things this group should discuss in the sequence in which they should discuss them, if they're going to assemble the most valuable, viable, and genuinely endorsed agreements, goals, and plans. So just to respect the time again, what the main point of this launch call here is for you to understand the purpose. It's to arrive at a set of agreements, goals, and plans that we can then place into action. And the way we do that is primarily the digital virtual dialogue, first of all, and those 3 steps into which you'll be invited. over the course of 3 weeks. We will use the analytics to send you a report and draw our conclusions of where we need to talk. But it's not a case of going into a room then and a group go in a room and then come out 4 weeks later and say, there you go, there's the plan. What we're doing is in each of the 4 steps of creating that solution, you'll also be invited to what's called a reasoning form to provide input and information to the group that's having the conversation so that they're fully informed. A project just run like this where there were 2,016 people involved across 19 factories around the world, and the core team of 9 that was working with all the information had the input on average of 1,500 people as they went in to make their decisions. So I just want to state that. And then the point I want to note on the correct drift is we have learned through the work the last few years that this is a bit like when you put a key, alignment is a bit like when you put a key into a new car and you turn the key for the first time. As soon as you do that, the car's value immediately starts to depreciate. We now know for 9 reasons that a group's degree of alignment will start to depreciate, and you cannot stop it. Therefore, every 4 to 6 months, Anne will conduct a drift monitor activity that identifies where the group's thinking about the subject has drifted, so you can make necessary and appropriate adjustments as required. This has become key to producing the outcomes in addition to conventional program management activities. So
yeah, Michael, I just want to add to that last slide about drift. That was no surprise at all to me as I'm learning about the content and the software and the science. Groups lose momentum. They need an injection of enthusiasm. They need a landscape check. The landscape is constantly changing, especially when we're looking at problems related to the future of work with public-private partnerships. You constantly have to do a landscape check. So the drift, when we get off course or lose momentum, that's not a sign of, that this isn't working. It's just reassuring to me that there's actually a tool, there's confirmation that this will probably happen and it's normal. And we have a tool to address, an occurrence that in other less augmented scenarios would be a drain on enthusiasm. But now we just know that it's normal and that it's par for the course.
That's right, Anne. Yeah, within a group, there'll be a net increase and there'll be bits of increase. In other areas, there'll be decrease, but the net that we've measured has always been negative, has always drifted down. And like you say, but you can now, it is natural. And I think that's a great way of putting it. So just to respect the time again, in terms of specifically what's going to occur from here is a week from today, starting on Monday the 29th, step 1, which is an invitation for you during that week, again, whether you spend 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 50 minutes, for you to share your opinions in response to a set of questions that are relevant to this subject. You can do that online. We will gather those together and send them back out the week after. That's when you'll get to see them and see what everybody's said, and then agree and disagree privately without any peer pressure or the boss being in the room or groupthink. And then again in step 3, that's where, again, without any groupthink or peer pressure, you'll actually have a look at how everybody responded and be able to provide input. So maybe 10 people said yes to something and you said no. And here's the data I have and the reasoning, which is why it's a case of no. So that's the 3rd step. And then again, we'll convene the week of the 19th to look at the data and then move forward into the solutioning. So let me close there, and Anne, I'll hand over to you for this point.
Yeah, we're recording this, and questions are great because whoever's watching the recording will probably have the same question that you're thinking of. So please ask questions so that we can get to a deeper level of understanding for this segment that we're recording. And if you don't have questions, that's fine. But if you do have a question, feel free to post it on the right. And we'll, we're up against time, but I'm happy to hang around and ask, listen to the questions that are posed.
And while we wait for the questions to come in, I hope in sort of just rounding up here, you have been invited into a inclusive process. If you think there are people that should be part of this because it will aid the eventual value and outcomes, and is open to those invitations and those names, it is transparent in that you have the, you're seeing the process, you will see the same data that everybody sees, you will see the actual logic of how opinions became actions, so it's meant to be transparent. It is designed to be safe. This is very much highlighted because it's not just about the things that people are comfortable saying on a topic like this, but we need the things that people are normally wouldn't say in a group, where they might say, well, this is never going to work because, and then hopefully just what you're seeing, typically it will take a group about a third of the hours to go from a start of a subject to having a high quality implementation plan ready to execute. And again, everything is, to Anne said earlier, this isn't about bias and loud voices. That we're going to look at and judge things based upon the merit of the information around them. So let me do the following. Let me make another invitation to others, to all of you out there. Perhaps Anne and I have done an extremely artful presentation, and you're comfortable with the understanding. But if there's any questions, we'll watch for that. And at the same time, I just want to make a point here, is that as you have the email addresses here, as we go through the process in the coming 7 weeks, if at any time you have any questions or concerns or advice, if you whatsoever, please let us know during the process. It's a pleasure to meet everybody virtually, and at this point, I propose we close the call and wish you all a good day.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks everyone for coming. See you soon.